Going live in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Licensing and Public Protection Committee, being held in hybrid format today, the 16th of March 2021 at 7 p.m. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube and recorded for publication at a later date. May I also ask members, in order to avoid any confusion, that if they wish a vote to be held on any item, that they make me aware of this by the appropriate time. Thank you. May I start by asking if there's any apologies for absence, and are there any members' substitutions taking place this evening, please? I believe we have Councillor Cooper, who's not joining us, but his replacement is Paul Northcott as a substitute.
That's correct, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, we'll carry on. Part 1, licensing. Do any members wish to declare an interest in relation to licensing matters on this agenda? That's a no. No. Minutes of the previous meeting can be found on pages 5 to 10 of your pack. Are members content that these can be taken as read?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's approved. Thank you. Moving to item 4, which can be found on pages 11 to 46 of your pack. This is in relation to establishing a cumulative impact assessment. Mr. Burton, would you please take us through this item, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening. I'm not planning on
going through the report in its entirety. It's been to you twice recently, once in October and once in January, but I will highlight some of the salient points, and then obviously I'll be happy for any questions that members may have. The purpose of this report is for members to determine whether or not the council should publish a cumulative impact assessment to support the council's licensing policy. We've previously resolved to have a cumulative impact policy that covers the Newcastle town centre, and this was incorporated into our licensing policy in since 2013. In April 2019, the committee resolved that the cumulative impact policy as it was would continue until we were able to transition to a cumulative impact assessment.
in October 2020.
The committee resolved to extend the existing cumulative impact policy to the 5th of April 2021 to allow this consultation and process to take place. And then in January 21, the committee resolved that the consultation process should be carried out to determine whether or not there was an evidential basis to publish cumulative impact assessment. We carried out the consultation process. It lasted 4 weeks, and a copy of the consultation document that we sent to all of the relevant consultees is attached as Appendix A to your report. The consultation document set out the council's explanation as to why a cumulative impact assessment was being considered, a summary of the data from Staffordshire Police in support of the assessment, which part of the borough was being considered to be covered by it, and which type of licences and premises that the assessment may apply to. In essence, the proposal was that the area of the borough to be considered is the same as the area that's considered under the existing cumulative impact policy, and there's a map of that attached at Appendix B to your report, and that only licence applications that related to the sale of alcohol would be included in the cumulative impact assessment, as that was the only ones that were covered by the existing cumulative impact policy.
It's proposed that the assessment is required to replace the current policy, and that we have it as a standalone
live document which is capable of being amended when required without an amendment being made to the council's licensing policy.
The data provided by Staffordshire Police initially prior to January, before we went out for consultation, is contained within Appendices B, C and D. It showed that the level of crime and antisocial behaviour remained high throughout the borough, but specifically in the areas that cover the town centre, which are under the cumulative impact policy. Whilst figures have decreased across the borough, generally, there has been an increase in the town centre.
In relation to incidents around violence, ASB, public order, and those have predominantly been at times associated with the nighttime economy being open.
During the consultation, we received
5 responses one from the Council's Environmental Protection Team, and their response is at Appendix E, one from the Council's Community Safety and Partnerships Team, which is attached at Appendix F, one from Staffordshire Police's Central Licensing Team, attached at Appendix G, one from the Neighbourhood Policing Team that look after the town centre, which is attached at Appendix H, and one from the British Beer and Pub Association, which is attached at Appendix I. Each of those responses is summarised within your report between paragraphs 2.8 and 2.12. It's also noted, it's noted by two of the consultees and also in the report that recently, some local authorities have removed their cumulative impact policies and assessments due to the impact of COVID and in light of what's changed in the hospitality sector and within their town centres. Local authorities that have done so include Trafford, Hereford, Bristol, Birmingham, Liverpool, and recently, since the report's been published, Cambridge have taken the same approach as well. However, there are some that have maintained them, and Bristol are actually looking to amend what they had previously and implement another one for a prospective area within the city centre. So in as far as that's what we're looking to do, the proposal tonight is threefold. The members note the information provided by Staffordshire Police in support of progressing a cumulative impact assessment that was submitted in advance of the consultation, which you've seen previously. The members note the information received as part of the consultation from the 5 responses that we received. And the members determine whether there is currently an evidential basis to publish a cumulative impact assessment, which in effect would replace the current cumulative impact policy. So the options available are within 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3 of your report. The options are that members determine that there is an evidential basis to publish a cumulative impact assessment that covers the existing area and includes all applications that relate to the sale and or supply of alcohol. And that's the officer recommendation. The second option is to determine that there is an evidential basis to publish an assessment, but to cover a different area, or to include different types of applications or businesses that could be incorporated into an assessment. So that it could include applications that relate to other licensable activities, such as regulated entertainment and late night refreshment, or it could be categorised by the type of premises. So it could be nightclubs and late night takeaways, rather than looking at the actual activity of sale of alcohol or late night refreshment. There's a variety of ways it could be implemented, and the third option would be not to publish a cumulative impact assessment at this time, because there's not currently an evidential basis to support one. And that's the important point tonight, is that even if members find it sort of desirable to have a cumulative impact assessment, we must be confident and happy that there is an evidential basis to do so, because if there isn't one, then we are unable to implement one and publish one. That's it. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Do any members wish to speak on this item, please? Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Burton, if we were to go for option 1, which you recommend, could we add in other types of premises at a later date if the evidence showed that there was a problem, such as late night takeaways? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Yes, we could.
It would be subject to another consultation. This is why we're hoping it to be a sort of a live standalone document, so it can be reviewed as and when. The reason why we've put it as it currently is to essentially replicate what we currently have. Previously, under the cumulative impact policy provisions, it could only relate to the sale of alcohol. It couldn't relate to other types of licensable activity or premises. The assessment gives a wider scope, but we've approached it based on what we currently have.
Councillor John Williams.
Thanks, Councillor. Chair. I have no problem with the policy. Just being a bit picky, really. can we renew the map that shows the areas? We've still got St George's and St Giles School on there, where the new Castle House is. So can they put a modern map on? And even that might be out of date by the time, because it's got the council offices on. But could a modern map be put in there instead of the old one? Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. Yes. If we were to publish one,
We could have an updated map provided to us with the police that covers the correct area. That's not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other members wish to speak on this item, please?
I say something, Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Sweeney.
No, I'd support what everybody said. Really, I think anything we can do at this present time to help the police out is something that we should do. So I've got no problem at all in supporting this. Thank you, Chairman.
Brilliant, thank you. Can this item be ratified then as officer's recommendation or another option?
I'd happy do the officer recommendation, Chairman.
Okay.
I second that, Chair.
All in favour? That's passed, thank you. Now moving to item 5, which can be found on pages 47 to 48 of your pack. There are the minutes of licensing subcommittee meetings. Does anybody wish to speak on this, or can they be accepted? Thank you. Thank you. Part 2, public protection. Does anyone want to declare an interest in relation to public protection matters on this agenda? No. Moving to item 7. This is for the variation of public spaces protection order in respect of dog controls. Mr. Beardmore, would you please take us through the report, please?
Certainly, Chair. Good evening. This is a report that members have actually asked for at a previous meeting. On the 12th of October, members agreed to renew a set of public space controls in relation to dog controls. And they essentially continued the controls that had been in place prior. However, at that meeting, members were uneasy with just taking forward this control specifically around 6 dogs, or a maximum of 6 dogs being able to be taken into specific locations. And that really is the purpose of this further report and the approvals and the discussions that we're seeking this evening. A public space protection order can be varied, and certainly their members have the ability to increase the number or reduce the number of dogs, to increase or reduce the areas where that particular control applies, or indeed to decide that that control is of no value and that they don't want to see that as part of a pack of dog controls. And I'll take you through some options in a moment or two. In preparation for this evening's review, I pulled together some information from a previous consultation where we'd asked, prior to October, our residents about the locations where the current control is in place. That was Apedale, Bateswood, Bathpool, Clough Hall, Silverdale Country Park, Lyme Valley Park and Birchamwood Country Park. And in all of those sites, residents were happy for the six dog control to continue. There was a very low number, around about 8%, that said that they didn't know, and a fairly consistent number of between 14 and 16% that said that they weren't happy for 6 dogs to be a limit that was set for those locations. But I think in the discussions that members had prior to the 12th and on the 12th of October, it became quite clear that 6 is quite a high number. As the report suggests, it is the expert advice that DEFRA received back in October 2014, and that advice has not changed. When you look then to the views of people like RSPCA, Kennel Club, and the like, they will offer a mixed range of views. Some will say that picking a number, an arbitrary number, is pretty much meaningless. The control should be addressed in a different way. Others will agree that the figure of 6 dogs is a reasonable number. In terms of our residents, majority of our residents, well, 1 in 4 of our households, which is some 14,000 households, have at least 1 dog. There's very few that have a considerable number. Once you get to sort of 3 dogs in the household, you're only looking at 4% of our dog owning households. And when you get to more than 4 dogs, there's only some probably 280 families across our 50-odd thousand families within the borough that own more than 4 dogs. So the data would suggest that there is unlikely to be occasions when people are exercising more than 4 dogs. However, clearly this does happen. There's times when maybe a resident will walk dogs for another family member or a neighbour. And there are times when there will be commercial dog walkers, people that will take people's pets and walk them for reward. So, you know, there can be occasions when there are 6, 5, 4, you know, those sort of numbers of dogs within a location. The majority of complaints that we have about dog interactions, and this again is a very small number, we're talking probably less than 20 complaints of this type each year, generally are not about high numbers of dogs. They're about interactions that happen with somebody with 1, maybe 2 dogs, and quite often it's another walker's dog with their dog, so it's 1 dog to 1 dog. So way below the threshold of this particular rule, and not one where this rule would ever come into play. Members therefore have a number of options at this point. They can keep the 6 dogs rule, which is based upon DEFRA's 2014 recommendation, that's been in force for 6 years to date, that's not really had any great comment one way or the other that it was necessary, unnecessary, should be changed, should be increased. You know, so the officer recommendation here is to leave the control unchanged. But it's recognised that clearly members have lots of other options there as well. There's scope to maybe reduce the maximum numbers, and you may say that 5 or 4 or 3 is a sensible number. And that, as I've mentioned, is really going to impact only on a very, very small number of our dog owning residents and our dog owning households. But also members might want to increase the locations where this applies. So we may want to add some other public parks onto the list that I read through to you earlier. There are merits and problems with each of those. There will be a small number of residents that will be aggrieved if the number is curtailed, because, as I mentioned, they may be walking other people's dogs, and that may prove difficult for them. It's a luxury for people to be able to take the dogs out twice. So if they have 5 dogs, 6 dogs, it may be difficult for them to have the time to actually do that in 2 walks of any sensible duration during the day. And that can therefore have animal welfare consequences for the dogs that aren't walked or that are left at home whilst their other pets from the household are separated from them for a while. Likewise, if we set a large number of locations where a relatively low number is imposed, then there's going to be displacement. Whatever isn't on the list will suddenly become a focus for dog walkers, and particularly commercial dog walkers. And members need to think whether or not businesses, legitimate businesses that will walk dogs, maybe are better walking those dogs in Apedale, Bathpool, Bateswood than they would be on Woolstanton Marsh or Icky Picky or Whammy or somewhere like that. So, you know, the locations list is particularly important. I can't offer you evidence that setting a lower number will materially change the number of dog-related injuries or complaints that we receive. As I've mentioned, they generally are people walking 1 or 2 dogs, and it's when dogs from different households come together rather than when there's an interaction between an individual and a large number of dogs walked by one person. Reducing the number will have an impact on professional dog walkers, and we have probably 6 or 8 of those businesses that regularly use the green spaces across the borough, and it will mean that they have to use other locations, or will choose to use other locations that may not be ideal. So again, your options are to receive a report, to decide whether or not you want to make a change. You may decide that leaving the control as it is currently written is the right thing to do. However, if you want to make a change, then I need to know from you 2 elements, please. The numbers that you feel that the maximum should be set at, and the locations where that control should be in place. Because it's those elements that then I'm obliged to move forward with public consultation. We would ask our residents whether your proposal this evening is something that they would support, and that will help me to show, as the legislation that underpins this order requires, that the control that we are seeking is a reasonable one, is a justifiable one, that doesn't impose on inappropriate restrictions, and our residents believe is something that they will support. So my request to you this evening is to consider whether the current rule is okay as it's written, and if not, to look at numbers, or consider numbers and consider locations, and then give your approval for that next necessary procedural step of consultation to start. If that consultation is triggered by your decision this evening, then members will receive a report with the outcome of that in due course. And it's at that point then that members can decide whether they wish to vary or to adopt a variation of the existing controls. To be clear, the remainder of our controls remain in place until this process ends. So that's controls around where a dog needs to be on a lead, about the obligation to remove dog fouling, the restriction on dogs being taken into certain locations like children's play areas, and for the moment, the control of 6 dogs in those locations: Apedale, Bateswood, Bathpool, Clough Hall, Silverdale Country Park, Lyme Valley Parkway and Birching Wood will remain in place. But at the end of this process, once members have given a scoping for further public consultation and have received that public consultation report, there is an option for them to vary that order, to adopt a variation and to change that number of 6 and those locations to a different list of locations and a different set of numbers. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Beardmore. Do any members have any questions or comments, please, to Mr. Beardmore? Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Beardmore, another councillor who's not a member of this committee, who is a member of the public audience, has suggested that from some dog societies that 4 dogs is the maximum that should be under the control of one person. And although we don't have all the complaints seem to be about one-on-one dogs, do you have any views on whether it should be 4 or 6 dogs? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I will struggle to guide members on this. I can see that there is a body of evidence for some of our bigger urban centres where there is greater footfall, greater density of dog walkers and other people. I can see that, for example, in our London parks, much smaller numbers have been set and have been set for good reason. But I struggle to see that it will make a lot of difference across the borough. I can't tell you, and I haven't found evidence that says that 5 is better than 6 or that 4 is better than 3 is better than 4. This is really down to for members to pick a number that they are comfortable with, and then for us to start a public consultation to see whether our residents agree that that is a number that they think is the right thing. And again, it's this particular powers that are set out in statute that we need to look at what numbers would have a detrimental impact and what actions are considered by dog owners to be unreasonable. This will divide our residents. We will have people that will want a very small number, and we will have people that want a very large number. And I'm sorry, I struggle to give you or to come up with a sensible recommendation there. It's a fence I'm afraid I'm stuck on.
Thank you, and thank you for that about the London parks. I do understand where you're coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jill Williams, please.
David, if we knowingly allow commercial businesses to use our parks and our public spaces, are these commercial dog walkers insured?
Okay, the current controls that are in place for a whole raft of animal licensing decided in 2018 to exclude commercial dog walking from their scope. So they're not required to be licensed by the council or by any other body, and therefore there's no obligation on them through a licensing control to be insured. They're a business, and so therefore no doubt they'll have whatever insurance their business feels is appropriate to protect them from litigation from members of the public or dog owners, or from loss of animals or the like. But the council itself has no way to control or to set a standard or to impose a requirement for insurance. And likewise, because most of our parks contain rights of way, and built into those provisions for rights of way is that a dog is a usual accompaniment, we couldn't ordinarily ban people from taking dogs into those locations. We can set a number, but the majority of other provisions say that commercial dog walkers are treated no differently than any other resident with a dog.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jill Waring.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I support the recommendations here. I think if they've been in force for 6 years, we have no great problems with them. I can't see the reason why we shouldn't keep to 6. If the 6 to 8 businesses that could be affected by it, I think we ought to take that into account. And also, I regularly see people walking more than 4 or 5 dogs. We've got like a greyhound rescue centre not far from where I live, and I've just moved house and I'm now on like the track up to the open space where everybody comes to walk the dog. So I'm quite used to seeing people with 4 dogs, and I think we should support it. I don't think 6 is too many. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think I'd probably leave it at 6 myself. I've been on this council since 2006, and I've never had this issue raised with me by residents. And if it's been there for 6 years and no one's ever mentioned it to me, I think I'd be quite happy to support leaving it at 6 and leaving it alone. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paul Northcott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I was constricted by the evidence and the figures that for public opinion there that are in the mid-70s, to leave it as it is, there's been no specific evidence to suggest that that this rule wouldn't apply. So I'll be in favour of keeping it as is, 6 dogs. So I'll be inclined to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more members wanting to?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Fire away.
Okay. I have a proposal to make, actually, Chair. I'm proposing we change the variation, and I propose we change the present order of no more than a maximum from 6 dogs to actually 4 dogs. To be walked by 1 person in all our public parks and spaces, not just our big parks, all our spaces. We have small parks in our area that are inundated with dogs, and only dogs now, because children haven't got room to play. I've thoroughly read the reports and taken note of consultees and officers, and nothing is said convinces me 1 person can have control over 6 dogs on lead, on or off, and ensure the safety of the public and clean up after themselves, which nobody with 6 dogs actually can do. It said in the report a lower limit and impact on commercial dog walkers. They're paid for walking dogs. Do they contribute to our parks? No way, they're not even insured on our parks. So why should we be using our parks? They're commercial businesses. It suggested the dog walkers will go on our open football fields. This information is at least 20 years out of date, and I'm sure our officers and councillors, and if you've never had any complaints, they've used our open football pitches for years and years and years. So you cannot use that excuse. I'm sorry, Chair, but I'd like my proposal put forward, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Williams.
Yeah, I'll second, unless somebody else wants a second, Councillor Joe Williams. And again, we live in a world now if things could happen. And I've seen it with 6 big dogs on these long leads walking in our country parks. And it's quite intimidating when you go, well, you're giving them a wide berth. But then country parks are for everybody, for children, for the other people like themselves, and people throughout the borough to use. And I think the intimidation of just seeing 6 dogs, size, of course, makes a little difference. But if you've got 6 little dogs, they can be quite intimidating. And I support this change, because if something happened, and I wouldn't like it on my conscience as a member of this committee, I feel we've got to change, not leave things, oh, well, everything's all right, nothing's happened, let's carry on. Hold on, you know, we've seen things this last few weeks where people have cut out in the streets, and the COVID pandemic has changed a lot of people's attitudes and what they see as right and wrong. And I think it's wrong if we have allowed one person to have 6 dogs on a lead. And we talk about a lead, how long is the lead? Is it 20, these great long leads, and I've seen them on with them on. And there's no control over it. And I'm really concerned that if something happened, and I'm a member of this committee, and we're allowing 6 dogs to be walked by one person. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any alternative proposals, please? No. We will vote on the proposal now. Now we do it by name vote. We're all in agreement, right? We'll start with Councillor John Williams first. Sorry, John, I can hardly hear you. Can you speak to your mic?
I do apologise, Mr. Chairman, again.
All right.
This Zoom meetings, there we are. But yes, I was with the amendments that it's Councillor Joe Williams has formed. Is there anybody else really? Because we are a partner, and somebody else who could second it. But if nobody else, I will second the amendment. Is that what it's called?
Yes, I did. And you got Mark. Are you seconded the?
All right, thank you. That's it.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Sweeney.
No, I don't support it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. That's the amendment.
Yes, Councillor Joe Williams.
I'm going with the amendment, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Mark Olszewski. Sorry, Mark, can you put your mic on?
Sorry, Chair, for the amendment.
For the amendment, thank you. Councillor Graham Hutton.
I'm going to vote against because there's no evidence to support it. And that's if there was any evidence whatsoever, I would support it, but there isn't any evidence, so I can't support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jill Heason, please.
I'm against it as well. The same comments as Councillor Houghton. There's no evidence to support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ruth Wright.
I support the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Councillor Paul Northcott, please.
I'm against the amendment, Chair, for the very same reasons my colleagues have mentioned in terms of there's just no evidence to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Parker.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Right. I will vote against the amendment for just to echo what all my colleagues have said.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Drew Waring.
Thank you, Chair. I'll vote against the amendment, please, on the grounds that I have seen people walking 6 dogs and I've been able to see how they do control them properly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor June Walklett in the far end there, I can just see you.
For the amendment.
For the amendment's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Sylvia Diamond.
Thank you, Chair. I will vote for the amendment. I am a dog owner and a dog walker, and I think it depends on who is walking the dogs, whether they can control 4, 5 or 6 dogs. I've seen evidence of people that cannot control 4 dogs, and I've also seen evidence of people that can control 6 dogs. But and the safety of the public, I will vote for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Diamond. And in my vote, I'm voting against. So can we have a tally up then, Jeff, please? With my markings, we've got 7 against and 6 for.
Correct, Chair. So the motion falls.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
So we now go back to the main motion.
So now we go back to the main motion. Any proposal and a seconder, please?
I propose.
Thank you, Graham.
Kevin, I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Right, Councillor John Cooper.
He's not here. It's Paul Northcott's covering for him.
Oh, sorry, Councillor John Williams. It's the screen flashing.
Thanks, Chair. Against.
Okay, Councillor Sweeney.
For.
Councillor Williams.
Against.
Councillor Mark Olczewski. Against. I can just hear you, Mark. Just to double check, put your mic off. Or should I say on?
Sorry, Chair, against. Good lip reader, though.
It's all right, don't worry. Councillor Graham Hutton.
For.
Councillor Jill Heasom.
For.
Councillor Ruth White.
Against.
Against. Councillor Paul Northcott.
For.
Councillor Andrew Parker.
I vote for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Drew Waring.
For.
Councillor Sylvia Diamond.
Against.
And Councillor June Walklett.
Against.
Thank you. And I'm voting for. Just add them up, Jeff, just to double check I've got my adding up correct.
7 for and 6 against, Chair. So the motion's carried.
Okay, so the motion is carried. Thank you very much. The next item on agenda is item number 8 in relation to public protection subcommittee arrangements. Mr. Burton, would you please take us through this item, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Matt, can I just say with your mic, you're dipping in and dipping out. So I'm just wondering if it's...
Maybe the way I'm facing. I'll look the other way around, so I'm speaking at the microphone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I don't propose to go through
the entirety of the report. Members will have seen something very similar multiple times now in relation to the public protection subcommittee arrangements. The purpose of the report is to put in place a future rota of attendance for those meetings. The recommendation is that members receive the report and note the date and time of their proposed attendance at the subcommittee where necessary, and where they're unable to attend the subcommittee, when they're unable to attend the subcommittee, they notify Democratic Services of an available substitute.
the subcommittee arrangements have been
In place since 2018, following the creation of this joint licensing and public protection committee. As I say, there's been a number of changes since then, a number of updates in terms of the rota. This is merely an extension of the rota that currently expires on the 5th of May.
So yes, it begins on what I've done is I've included the
3 remaining meetings which were on the existing rota, and then I started again from the 26th of May through till March 2022. The current proposal is that the meetings are every 3 weeks, or roughly every 3 weeks, where we're able to. I have identified a few areas or a few dates where that would clash with meetings such as Cabinet, and that's where those dates have been moved forward or backwards a week, so that they don't clash with those types of meetings. And there's also a meeting in December which I've moved forward a week so it didn't clash with the last week before Christmas.
The proposal really, as I said, is for members to
report and note the date and time of the proposed attendance, and to inform Democratic Services if they're unable to, providing a substitute. If there are any questions, Chair, happy to take them.
Okay, do any members have any questions or comments, please, for Mr. Burton? Councillor Sylvia Diamond.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just reiterate that I cannot do 2 o'clock meetings because I do work full time?
Okay, noted.
Chair, if I may, we had some
correspondence from Councillor Wright, and I'm sure that's what she's just about to mention. She's been put on a couple of the 6 o'clock meetings.
Right.
So if it pleases both Councillor Wright and Diamond, maybe I can swap the 2.
Yeah, if Councillor Diamond's happy about that, and Councillor Wright.
Yes, I'm perfectly happy about it, but I don't know if other people will be as well, because I think that a lot of people have been changed. Can you hear me?
Yes, just about. Yeah.
Oh, right. So, I think there's a lot of the rota seems to have been changed. People who requested to do meetings in the daytime have been put at 6 o'clock, and those in the evening have been put at 2. So it just needs to be looked at again, I think.
Okay.
That certainly wasn't the intention. I have lifted
an earlier rota and placed it into the timings. I've perhaps
mixed the 2 up, the 6s and the 2 o'clocks from the 25th
I mean,
of May.
sure, it's done on purpose. It's a bit of an issue, that's all.
I'll be honest, I have
effectively copied and pasted a previous rota into the timings. So it may be that the what was 2 o'clock has been put on the 6 o'clock line, and then everything has followed down.
Yeah.
I can bring a report once that's been amended, if once I've looked at it again, if it is the case that a number of members are affected. What I would ask, if that is the case, is to agree to this for now, tonight, and then I'll bring another report in June, because we don't have any meetings, full committee meetings before June, and we do need to obviously have a rota in place prior to that.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Is there any others? Any other members want to ask any questions or comments, please, for Mr. Burton? No. Okay, we now move on to part 3 of the agenda, which is in closed session. This is to resolve that members of the public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the report, because it is likely that there will be a disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1, 2 and 7 in part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Can I please ask the officer to stop broadcasting and remove any members of the public, please?